Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to episode 2 of the VinDawg Pod. And let me just tell you, today is an exciting day. Today is an exciting day because the University of Washington and the University of Oregon have just announced that they are going to the Big Ten. Come on, baby. I don't know why I like to do those rounds of applause at the beginning of my podcast, but I can't help it. I can't help it because it's an electric day. It's an electric day. The Pac-12 is dead in the water, which sucks. I mean, it's supposed to be the Conference of Champions, and they're gone. But I saw this coming. As soon as Colorado left, UW had to be selfish, and they made that play. Oregon joined them. I think it's going to be good football-wise, sports-wise, but I do feel for the student athletes because that's going to be a lot more traveling for them. So that part does stink. However, we're going to get into that later. Just kind of introduce the podcast today. I kind of want to just, rant about how bad I am at golf to start. I know nobody cares about how bad I am at golf, but I played yesterday and I can't putt worth anything. So if anyone knows any golfing instructors, please send them my way because I could use all the help I could get at this point. Anyway, obviously we're going to be talking about the newest addition to the Big Ten and what that means for the University of Washington and the University of Oregon. I'm also going to do a little bit of a blast to the past today, talk about two phenomenal national championship teams at the University of Washington, the 1991 football team and the 2009 softball team, baby. So we'll kind of get into detail on how those seasons went by, what happened, and how they ended up winning the national championship and what that past glory means for UW as they look for newfound glory starting in 2023. I'm also going to, talk about who I think is going to end up winning some conference championships here going into, the 2023 season, whether it's, Mountain West, whatever it might be, SEC, Big 10, Big 12, Pac 12. I'll get into that. I'll give you guys my predictions, my reason for those predictions, and that is it. So let's get into it. First and foremost, we're going to do a little countdown to fall sports. I mean, we're getting close, guys. UW football preseason camp just begun. Panic started slow on the first day, missed his first pass, was nearly intercepted. But he got hot. And he's looking good, and the chemistry is looking good. He finished practice on day one with the play of the day, a 41-yard lob touchdown to Jeremy Bernard, a big-time transfer pickup for us. Tight window throws are happening to McMillan. That chemistry looks as good as ever. The starting lineup for camp, you have Penix at quarterback, Cameron Davis at running back, Jalen McMillan and Romo Dunze and Jalen Polk as your wide receivers. Devin Culp at tight end, but Jack Westover has been getting some snaps in there as well. And on your offensive line, you have Troy Faltanu, Julius Bulow, Matteo Millet, Nate Kulepo, and Roger Rosengarten. On defense, your defensive linemen are Latuli Gacinio, I don't know. That's a very difficult last name to say. I think it's Latuli Gacinua. Latuli Gustinoa. I think something like that. I think I'm close. We got Ulumu Ale on the defensive line. You also have your edge rushers, Braylon Trice and ZTF. At linebackers, you have Ulofosio Tuputala, Alfonso Tuputala. Dude, I need to get better with these names, guys. Wow. Jabbar Muhammad, Elijah Jackson. At the nickel, the Husky position, you have Mish Powell. And at safety, you have Dominique Hampton and Asa Turner. So, very exciting stuff. I'm looking forward to see how that lineup's going to go when week one comes around against Boise State. Guys, let's get into it. The University of Washington and the University of Oregon are joining the Big Ten. It's now going to be an 18-team Big Ten conference. That's the biggest conference in college football history. That's going to be very fun. I'm very excited to see what that'll turn into in 2024. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Washington, and Oregon are all going to be the top 5 program. If you swap out Penn State with Michigan State, those are 5 college football playoff teams right there. They've all been there in the past, and I'm very excited to see how 2024 and beyond goes for those programs. It's going to be a lot of exciting matchups coming up for UW. I mean, I can only imagine traveling to Penn State, traveling to Ann Arbor. There's just going to be so many fun matchups, especially in those environments. College football home crowds are no joke. And I do like to think that Husky Stadium, the greatest setting in college football, is as good as it gets. Have you seen some of those highlights of those Penn State games with that crowd? I mean, it's just a rambunctious crowd. And so that's going to be very exciting to see UW as a part of those games. The Pac-12 is in shambles, guys. The Pac-12 is in absolute shambles. Wazoo, Oregon State, Cal, and Stanford are all kind of screwed right now. Arizona State and Utah just announced that they're going to make bids for the Big 12. I think the Apple Cup is still going to be an exciting rivalry between UW and Wazoo. I mean, the reality is everybody at Wazoo is pissed right now that UW left. I don't think it's UW's fault at all. I think obviously USC and UCLA started this whole thing. I think Texas started this whole thing by going to the SEC, but whatever. We don't care about the SEC right now. Yeah, I still think that the Apple Cup, UW and Wazoo just have that history, and I think that they're going to continue that tradition. And I think it's going to be fun as ever. I think it will mean that probably a top, like, week 3 matchup between those teams, right? I mean, you got to figure that that's just going to be an out-of-conference game that they'll always keep, and then once it goes into conference play, they'll end the season with, maybe they'll end it with Oregon in the future. I mean, who knows? Who knows how they'll end it? But I'm very excited to see how that'll go. University of Washington and University of Oregon are receiving a partial share of the allotment from the conference through their TV deal. That TV deal goes through the 2029 season. They'll probably make more each year, but at the very beginning, they're just going to be making a partial share of that. Now, keep in mind that partial share is still magnificently better than what the Pac-12 deal would have been. So if you are a UW athletic department person, you're pretty happy knowing that, you were not looking great financially. You're still paying off Jimmy Lake. You still have those financial concerns going on. Now you're making a lot more money in the Big Ten. That's going to be a very big deal for them. None of the schools were required to pay the exit fee for leaving the Pac-12 because their media deal expired. I think it's just an all-time fumble from the Pac-12. I don't know what the Pac-12 is doing, but they had to have seen this coming. If you're not going to make a media deal and you're just going to let teams walk free, why wouldn't they? I mean, why wouldn't they just leave, right? So, I mean, that's what they did. UW and Oregon realized that, hey, this is our opportunity to leave. We got to take advantage of it. And that's what they went and did. So I don't think you can really blame them for that. The fair prediction of full share Big Ten deal, according to ESPN, is $70 million a year. So even getting half of that, right? Even making $35 million a year for UW at the very beginning, since they're only going to make a partial allotment, even making $35 million a year is $10 million plus more than what they would have gotten out of that Pac-12 deal with Apple TV. So Pac-12, I don't know what you were thinking, but you have just dug your own grave, my friend. The future for the University of Washington, I think that this Big Ten move is huge for them. It's going to mean they're going to get a lot more blue chip recruits. It's a much better pitch when you're saying, hey, you're joining the Big Ten, rather than, hey, you're joining a dying Pac-12 conference. So I think that's going to work in UW's favor. I think that the recruiting process is going to become a lot better, especially when you have a recruiter like Kalen DeBoer and you have such an established program at the University of Washington. I think that'll go great for them. There's going to be a lot more money and publicity for UW now, guys. I mean, the amount of people that will now be watching the University of Washington football games compared to in the past when they were with the Pac-12, I mean, it's going to be exponentially more. I mean, there's just going to be so much more newfound interest now that they are a part of what many people consider to be the second best conference in college football, right behind SEC. So, I mean, that's going to be a big deal for them. I think the Big Ten after dark is going to be electric. You have to think that UW is still going to be playing these night games with them on the West Coast. We always saw that with like Pac-12 after dark. I mean, Big Ten after dark is going to be just as exciting. I think the UW home games are going to be played late. I think it's going to be prime time television. I think everybody's going to be tuning in because most of the games will be over. Nobody's really cared much about Pac-12 after dark other than Pac-12 teams. And even then, it played on the Pac-12 network, which was just not a very easy thing to access. I think now that in this media deal with the Big Ten, they are going to get a lot more publicity, a lot more views, and a lot more people are going to be watching those football games. So that's really huge for the University of Washington. It makes a lot of pressure on Kalen DeBoer this year to do as well as possible because all eyes are going to be on him. All the pressure is going to be on him. All right, you just went 11-2 with this UW team. This is your final year in the Pac-12 before you move to the Big 10. How are you going to show that this conference or this team belongs in this conference? How are you going to show that this team is the real deal? That's what the questions are going to be for Kalen DeBoer, and that's what he's prepared to answer. I'm very excited. I think he's excited. I think the whole team's excited. Obviously, it's disappointing to not be in the Pac-12 anymore. You know, you wanted to see the Pac-12 succeed, but now it's on the bigger and greater things for the University of Washington, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that will go. One last Pac-12 championship. I think that's in the cards for the University of Washington. What better way to leave? What better way to end things with this conference than to go out on top? And I think that's going to be their goal coming up this year. Let's go ahead and do a blast to the past. You know, now that we're talking about how important it's going to be for the University of Washington to be joining the Big Ten, let's kind of reflect on how incredible it's been for them in their time with the Pac-10, the Pac-12, whatever it was for them. First and foremost, with the Pac-12 in shambles now, you know, let's think about how great UW was when they were in the Pac-10. We're going to start with the 1991 National Championship season for Washington football. Head coach Don James led the Huskies to glory in his 17th season with the team. They went undefeated, 12-0, with Mario Bailey and Steve Entman leading that charge. They were ranked 4th in the preseason poll going into the year, and they had an easy Week 1 victory. Week 2, they were down 14-6 to number 9 Nebraska. Ended up winning by 15 with a 36-21 victory. That's a massive halftime deficit to overcome, I feel like, and win that big is pretty significant. I think that really sets the tone for the rest of the season, especially against a number 9 or top 10 team in the nation. Week 3 through 5, they outscored their opponents at home 158-3. I mean, that's ridiculous. Those are ridiculous numbers right there. 158-3 in 3 games, 3 straight home wins. They're now 5-0 overall. Week 6, a 24-17 victory over number 7 Cal. That takes them to 6-0. Week 7, they go and clobber Oregon, 29-7. You know, new Big 10 rival. Hey, 1991, we showed you that we were that team. 2023, we're gonna show you we're that team, baby. Come on now. They beat Oregon at home to go 7-0. And then week 8 and 9, a 44-16 win over ASU was followed with a 14-3 gritty defensive game win against USC to take them to 9-0. Week 10, they slaughtered Oregon State 58-6 at home. At home. They're going to go to Oregon State on the road. I'm very nervous for that this year, but, you know, in 1991, Oregon State wasn't putting up big wins like that. Week 11, obviously, Apple Cup. You want to go ahead and guess who won the Apple Cup? It was UW winning 56-21 at home. You can expect the same thing to happen this year. That's all I got to say. And then in week 12, last game of the year, they couldn't play Miami, which was the other undefeated team. They couldn't play that because the contract had the Pac-10 playing the winner of the Big 10. So they capped the season with a 34-14 victory over number 4 Michigan in the Rose Bowl, and they got themselves the perfect 12-0 year. They had 11 Huskies drafted in that following year. Steve Entman, he ended up going 1st overall. Just an unbelievable year for the Washington Huskies. So it would be exciting to see UW pull off another national championship in the coming future, especially as they're joining the Big Ten, and I would love to see them do it in 2023. Washington softball, 2009 national champions. Let's talk about that a little bit. They had the head coaching GOAT, Heather Tarr, in her 5th season. Only took her 5 seasons to win it all for UW. She was an assistant for a while, went into UW with high expectations, delivered on all high expectations. They went 51-12 that year, 14-1 at home, and 14-7 in conference play. And the Pac-10 is easily the best conference in softball, especially in 2009. We'll get into how difficult it was for them, but they made it through. They started the season with an 18-game win streak. They had wins against the number 12 team in the nation, number 2 team in the nation, number 25, 24, and 23 team in the nation before they ended up losing to number 1 Alabama 6-0. So they went 18-1 in their first 19 games of the season with that loss to Bama. They followed that up by beating number 11 Georgia and then beating number 1 Bama again in a rematch. They ended up losing to Georgia later after that, but you beat number 1 Alabama after losing to them. That's a big time win, a big time confidence builder. After that, they won 7 of 9 to close out conference play with 3 more ranked wins, and they saw themselves at 27-3 overall going into conference play. It's a phenomenal record. And then we have it from there. They end up winning 5 straight games against number 1 team. Or they played 5 straight games against number 1 teams. They played number 1 Stanford, and then after that, Arizona was number 1. They played number 1 Arizona, and then after that, Arizona State was number 1, and they played Arizona State. So 5 straight games against number 1 teams. They ended up going 3-2 in those 5 games. That's not bad if you're playing the number 1 team in the nation, especially when you haven't been ranked number 1 throughout that time. They went 41-10 heading into the NCAA tournament. That's a very good record. They ended up defeating number 21 UMass in regionals. They ended up going to Georgia Tech and sweeping Georgia Tech on the road in super regionals, and that takes them to the Women's College World Series. They beat Georgia twice and Arizona State once to advance into the finals. And then from there, they played number 1 Florida, and they win back-to-back games against number 1 Florida. From there, they win the national championship. Daniel Laurie was just unbelievable throughout that process. You could see the emotion. That game is on YouTube. You can see the emotion on her face when she ends up winning it. So that was big time. That was big time for them. Daniel Laurie that year went 42-8 with a .97 ERA, a .68 WHIP, 521 strikeouts, and 352.2 innings. Guys, if you want to know what it takes to have your name on the fence as an all-time legend for a school, those are the kind of numbers you have to put up. I don't even know if Michael Penix can put up similar numbers like that on the football field, but I mean, that doesn't matter. Daniel Laurie, one of the greatest to ever do it, happened to do it for Washington and lead them to that 2009 national championship. At the same time, she also was batting .269 with 7 bombs. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. Shohei maybe hits more bombs, but hey, Daniel Laurie was doing it first, guys. Just remember that. Ashley Charters was also phenomenal for UW. She went 442 with a 1.174 OPS, 66 runs, and 9 bombs herself. So phenomenal season from them, and the 2009 national champion Washington softball team was making its case. Well, I guess, coming on that end, we can go ahead and talk about the betting segment. Now, remember, I am not a gambler myself, and these are all my opinions. But I think these are some very, very nice bets to win the conference in the upcoming 2023 football season. In the ACC, I think Florida State plus 200 is the pick to win the ACC. They're considering realignment because of revenue concerns. They say that they love being in the ACC, but we see how this conference realignment playing right now, so you can only take that at face value. Also, they are kind of in for a major prove-it season. They have an LSU in a very early season matchup. I think LSU is going to be phenomenal in the SEC. We'll get into that. But I think that'll prepare them for the rest of the season. I think that, they have running back Trey Benson, defensive back Fentel Cypress, defensive lineman Jared Verse, and wide receiver Johnny Wilson, all on the preseason All-ACC. I think that's going to be big time for them. They're all going to be superstars. Florida State projected to finish second, and Jordan Travis was projected to finish second in the ACC Player of the Year rankings. But I think that Jordan Travis, there's a reason he's a Heisman candidate. He's going to carry that team to the ACC championship. From there, anything can happen. I think Florida State's going to be capable of taking it all. Florida State plus 200 is my pick for the ACC. Big 12. I got Kansas State repeating it at plus 700. I think plus 700 is a very fun. Oh my goodness. I think plus 700 is a very good bet for them. Chris Kleeman coached Kansas State to that Big 12 championship last year. He's got the talent to do it again on this team. Experts all see Kansas State winning 10-plus games. I do too. I think that they're capable of that. I think they're going to make their way into that conference championship game. Will Howard is a very underrated quarterback, and the entire offensive line is returning. So you can expect very high offensive production from this team. And they don't have to face Oklahoma. all year, and that could prove to be a very valuable game that they don't end up losing if it were to come to that. So yeah, I could see them playing Texas Tech in that conference championship game, and I can see them beating Texas Tech, and I can see Kansas State at plus 700 winning the Big 12. Now we got the Big 10. I'm taking Michigan here to three-peat the Big 10 at plus 180. The team has all the talent in the world to return to the college football playoff. Now, Jim Harbaugh got suspended for the first 4 games, but did you see those first 4 games? It's an absolute joke. They're not playing anybody hard. It's not going to be difficult for Jim Harbaugh to make that happen with his team without him. So I think that Jim Harbaugh just having his own presence on the team for the remainder of the season, they're going to lose him for those easy games, and then he's going to come in hot and ready. I mean, he's due. John Harbaugh is due. Jim Harbaugh is due to make something happen. He's got J.J. McCarthy at the helm, and he's the top quarterback, and we know that. It might be fair to say he's going to break the Michigan passing touchdown record this year. But even without the passing game in question, you have the best backfield in the nation with Blake Corum and Donovan Edmonds. I mean, I think that Blake Corum is literally a Heisman candidate. So that alone kind of puts you in a spot where, okay, this is going to be a dominant offense. Not to mention J.J. McCarthy is going to be out there. This team's going to be pretty unstoppable. I can see them winning the Big Ten. I mean, Ohio State's their biggest competition, but they've kind of had their number recently. And you know what? I think Jim Harbaugh realizes that he's going to make it happen. Ryan Day was born on third base, so I don't really think he's going to be doing much for Ohio State. I think that this is going to be a year for Michigan State to three-peat, find themselves back in the college football playoff, and maybe they can actually make it to the championship game. We'll see. We will see. SEC. I'm taking LSU to win the SEC at plus 450. I know you could take Georgia, you could take Alabama, but I think LSU at plus 450, they have a talented enough roster that they can surprise a lot of people. LSU went 10-1 last season when Jaden Daniels ran for 140 plus yards in a game, and then they were 0 for 3 otherwise. So you know the value that Jaden Daniels has. If he can improve his passing ability and continue to run at such a dominant pace that he's been, anything can happen, and they can make things happen. They can win those big time games. Big transfers are going to strengthen the defense. Omar Space was that Oregon State linebacker. I think he's going to be shut down. I mean, there's a reason he led the Pac-12 in tackling last season. And I think that there were a lot of good running backs in the Pac-12 last year. So to have someone who's just got that tackling ability, put that on that LSU team, I think that LSU defense is going to cause a lot of problems to other offenses. 10-win seasons expected for LSU, so they're going to be right on the doorstep to that championship game. I think if they get into it, anything can happen. They can make one big play to win it all, and I think that's what you can expect from LSU plus 450 to win the SEC. Mountain West, it has to be Boise State at plus 185. I mean, Boise State, I feel like is the front runner every year, but there's a reason to that. They have a very talented offense. Taylor Green has the potential to be a phenomenal quarterback at Boise State if he can work on that arm talent. He's already very quick, but if he's good, if he pans out to how people think he's going to be, the Broncos are going to be a top team in the nation. I mean, their offense is going to be unstoppable. They're going to be looking for a top 25 rank, and winning the Mountain West is the way that they're going to get there. Boise's going to lose to UW week 1. I've already kind of predicted that last week, and I think it's going to happen. But I think that's going to be the kind of wake-up call that this team needs to realize that they have the potential to win out this season. I think they're going to play UW closer than people think, and I think because of that, they're going to show themselves that they have everything it takes to be a top 25 team and make a deep run, maybe even a New York 6 if they go 11-1. If they win out after that game against UW, they could really make a New York 6 and make it happen. If the defense plays like they did last season, then Boise State is going to be a problem, and you can count on that, and that's why I have Boise State at plus 185 to win the Mountain West. And then finally, of course, the Pac-12. Now, we know what I think, right? I still think that Oregon State is a great value pick to win the Pac-12, but now that the entire Pac-12 is just disintegrating before our eyes, it's not crazy to say that maybe that will affect Oregon State a little bit this season. I think maybe now a team like UW or even Oregon is more motivated to really show out in their last year in the Pac-12 before going to the Big Ten. So, of course, my pick is the University of Washington plus 265 to win the Pac-12. What a shocker prediction from me, huh? But there's a reason that I say that. I mean, you got to keep in mind they have a Heisman candidate in Michael Penix Jr. out there. You have two of the best receivers in the nation. You have one of the best defensive lines in the nation. You have a great tight end in Devin Culp. You have an underrated run game. You have a great offensive line that kind of has some questions, but they're going to be great. They have a backup center who might even compete for that starting job. I just think that this team is way too talented offensively and good enough defensively to hang with the best. And I think they can beat USC. I think they can beat Oregon. I think they can beat Utah. I don't know if they can beat Oregon State, but maybe they can beat Oregon State. They're going to murder Wazoo. They're going to set themselves up in a perfect spot to be in that Pac-12 championship game, and they're going to go and win it. So I have UW plus 265 winning the Pac-12. On that note, I'm very excited to see how this week plays out. Pac-12, it's in shambles. I really have no idea what's going to happen to Wazoo. I have no idea what's going to happen to Oregon State, but hopefully they figure something out. I can see them going to the Mountain West, but even then, it feels like the Mountain West is a step down for them. You know, I feel like you could argue they deserve to be in the Big 12. I mean, those fan bases are awesome. I do think it's kind of like awkward that they are like smaller teams in a sense, but regardless, it's very unfortunate for them. They're kind of getting screwed. I'm very excited to see what the future holds for the University of Washington as they join the Big Ten. But on that note, that's it for this week. Thank you all for joining the VinDawg Pod. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys Friday. And we're getting closer and closer and closer, not only to the college football season, but even the NFL season as well. So look out for next week. We'll probably be getting some NFL stuff in there, maybe talk about some NFL dogs. But other than that, that's it for this week. I appreciate you all listening to me, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your Friday and rest of your week. Peace out, everybody.